The afternoon sun hung heavy in the Atlanta sky, thick with humidity that clung to skin like a second layer. Inside her slightly older model sedan, a woman adjusted the rearview mirror just enough to catch a glimpse of her daughter in the back seat. The little girl, 6 years old with bright eyes and 2 neat braids, was humming softly along to a cartoon song playing from the tablet propped against her car seat. Her small fingers tapped the screen gently, completely absorbed. The drive home from school had been quiet, peaceful, the kind of calm that felt rare and precious to a mother who worked long hours and cherished every ordinary moment with her child. She'd just turned onto their street, a quiet neighborhood lined with oak trees and modest brick homes, when she saw the flashing blue and red lights behind her. Her stomach dropped instantly. She hadn't been speeding. She hadn't run a light. She checked her speedometer, 28 and a 30. Still, she pulled over smoothly to the curb, heart already beginning to thud in her chest. She turned off the cartoon, reached back to squeeze her daughter's knee, and gave her a small, reassuring smile. "It's okay, baby. Just stay calm." 2 police officers stepped out of the cruiser. One was older, with a thick build and a permanent scowl etched into his face. The other was younger, slimmer, and kept her eyes down as she walked toward the car. The older officer approached the driver's side window, hand resting near his belt. He didn't greet her, didn't say good afternoon or ma'am. He just stood there, arms crossed, staring down like she'd already done something wrong. "License and registration," he said, voice flat and sharp. She took a slow breath, reached into her glove compartment for the registration, and then pulled her wallet from her purse. Her hands were steady, but inside her nerves were humming. She handed both documents through the open window. "Is everything okay, officer? Was I speeding?" He barely glanced at the papers. "You got a busted taillight," he said, not looking at her. "Left side. Been like that long?" She frowned slightly. "I didn't even know. I'll get it fixed right away." He finally looked at her then, and his eyes narrowed. "People like you never do," he muttered, just loud enough for her to hear. She blinked. "Excuse me?" He leaned in a little, his voice dropping but still edged with contempt. "You heard me. You drive around like you own the road, don't care about basic maintenance, then act surprised when we pull you over." Her daughter, sensing the shift in tone, peeked over the front seat. "Mama." "It's okay, sweetheart," she said quickly, forcing warmth into her voice. Then she turned back to the officer. "I'm sorry, but I really didn't know about the light. I work nights at the hospital. I'm a nurse, and I haven't had time to check the car lately. But I'll fix it today." The officer scoffed. "Oh, so you're one of those hard-working types, huh?" Must be tough playing victim while ignoring the law. She felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice level. "I'm not playing anything. I'm just trying to get my daughter home safely." That's when he smirked. "Yeah, well, maybe you should teach her some respect while you're at it, instead of letting her watch cartoons like she's royalty." Her daughter's eyes widened. "Mama?" She reached back again without looking, her fingers finding her daughter's small hand. "Shh, it's fine," but it wasn't fine. Something in his tone, the casual cruelty, the way he looked at her like she was less than human, cut deep. She'd heard that tone before. In grocery stores, at job interviews, from strangers on the street. But never like this. Never while her child watched. She took another breath. "Officer, I'm complying. I gave you my license and registration. I'm not arguing. I just want to know what I need to do so I can get my daughter home." He straightened up, arms still crossed. "You'll do what I tell you to do." "Step out of the car," she hesitated. "Why? I haven't done anything wrong." His jaw tightened. "Are you refusing a lawful order?" "No," she said carefully. "I'm just asking why." "It's a broken taillight. I can fix that." "Do I really need to get out of the car?" "You're being uncooperative," he snapped. "That's obstruction. Now get out." From the back seat, her daughter started to whimper. "Mama, don't go." She turned fully this time, giving her daughter her full attention. "Baby, look at me." "I'm right here. Nothing's going to happen to me. I promise." Then quietly, so only her daughter could hear, "Be brave for me, okay?" She turned back to the officer. "I'm not getting out unless you tell me why it's necessary." "I know my rights." That seemed to surprise him. His eyes flicked toward his partner, who still hadn't said a word. The younger officer shifted her weight but didn't step forward. "You think you know your rights?" the older officer said, voice rising. "You're a loud-mouthed ghetto girl who thinks rules don't apply to her. That's the problem with people like you. You raise your kids to disrespect authority." The words landed like a slap. Her daughter let out a soft cry. "Mama, why is he saying that?" She felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back hard. This wasn't about her anymore. It was about the little girl in the back seat who was learning, in real time, how the world could treat her mother and, by extension, herself, just for existing. Without breaking eye contact with the officer, she reached into her center console and pulled out her phone. She unlocked it with her thumb and opened the camera. "I'm recording this," she said, voice calm but firm. "For my daughter's sake. So she knows the truth." The officer's face flushed red. "You can't record me." "In Georgia, I can," she said. "One-party consent. I'm one of the parties." He took a step back, clearly rattled. "You're under arrest for obstruction and resisting. For asking questions," she said. "For wanting to protect my child from being scared. That's not resisting. That's being a mother." He moved toward the door handle, but she locked it with a quiet click. "Don't touch my car," she said. "I haven't broken any laws. I haven't yelled. I haven't moved. I'm sitting here with my 6-year-old daughter, and you're calling me names in front of her. That's not policing. That's bullying." Her voice didn't shake. It was steady, clear, and carried a weight that seemed to catch even him off guard. He stood there, fists clenched, breathing hard, but he didn't try to open the door again. The younger officer finally spoke. "Sir, maybe we should just issue the citation and go." He shot her a glare. "Stay out of it." But the moment had shifted. The power he thought he held, the assumption that she would cower, apologize, obey without question, was crumbling. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't crying. She was just present, unmoved. And that, somehow, was more threatening than any outburst. In the back seat, her daughter had stopped crying. She was watching her mother with wide, awed eyes, as if seeing her in a new light. The woman caught that look in the rearview mirror and felt a surge of something fierce and protective rise in her chest. This wasn't just about a taillight anymore. It was about dignity, about showing her child that you don't have to accept being treated like less. She kept the phone recording, the red dot glowing steadily in the corner of the screen. The officer paced a few steps away, muttering into his radio. She heard him say something about non-compliant subject and possible backup, but she didn't flinch. She reached back again and squeezed her daughter's hand. "We're okay," she whispered. "We're going to be okay." The air felt thick, charged. Neighbors had started to peek out from porches. A dog barked somewhere down the street. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the pavement. And in that ordinary car on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, something extraordinary was happening. A mother, armed with nothing but her voice and her love, was drawing a line in the sand. She didn't know what would come next. Arrest, lawsuit, backlash, support. But in that moment, none of it mattered. All that mattered was that her daughter would remember this, that her mother stood tall, that she refused to be shamed, that she fought back, not with fists but with truth, with calm, with unwavering presence. The officer finally came back to the window, his expression tight. "Fine," he growled. "Fix your damn light, and don't let me see you around here again." He tossed her license and registration onto the hood of the car and walked back to the cruiser without another word. The younger officer gave her a quick, almost apologetic glance before getting in the passenger seat. The cruiser pulled away, lights off, leaving her sitting there in the quiet street. She let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Her hands trembled slightly now that the adrenaline was fading. She turned to her daughter. "You okay, baby?" The little girl nodded slowly, then asked, "Mama, why did he say those things about you?" She unbuckled her seatbelt, turned fully around, and pulled her daughter into a tight hug. "Because some people are afraid of strong women," she said softly. "Especially strong black women. But that doesn't mean they're right. It just means we have to be even stronger." She kissed the top of her daughter's head, then reached for her phone. The recording was still running. She stopped it, saved the file, and sent a copy to her sister's email, just in case. Then she started the car, checked the mirror, and drove the last block home. The taillight was still broken, but something else inside her, something deeper, older, more resilient, had just been repaired. That night, after tucking her daughter into bed and reading her favorite story twice, once for bravery, once for comfort, the woman sat alone at the kitchen table. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a neighbor's TV. Her phone lay in front of her, screen dark. She hadn't touched it since they got home, but she knew she had to. She took a deep breath, unlocked it, and opened the video file. She watched it again, every word, every pause, every time her daughter's small voice trembled in the background. She saw the officer's sneer, the way his eyes narrowed when she refused to cower. She heard herself, calm, clear, steady, answering back not with anger but with truth. And she saw her daughter's face in the rearview mirror, confused at first, then scared, then something else, something like pride. Her hands shook this time, not from fear but from the weight of what had happened. It wasn't just a traffic stop. It was a moment that could shape how her child saw the world, and herself. She couldn't let it disappear. She couldn't let his words be the last ones her daughter remembered. She opened her social media app. She rarely posted anything personal, mostly photos of her daughter's drawings or updates about community events. But this felt different. This wasn't about her. It was about protection. About proof. She typed a short caption. Pulled over for a broken taillight today. My 6-year-old was in the back seat. This is what happened. I'm sharing this so other parents know they're not alone, and so my daughter knows her mama stood up for us both. She attached the video, double-checked her privacy settings to make sure it was public, and hit post. Then she turned off the phone and went to the bathroom to wash her face. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. Tired eyes, hair pulled back in a messy bun, the faint lines of stress around her mouth. She looked like any other working mom. But today she'd done something that didn't feel ordinary at all. She didn't expect much to happen. Maybe a few comments from friends, that's messed up, or so sorry you went through that. She went to bed hoping her daughter would sleep through the night without nightmares. But by morning, everything had changed. Her phone buzzed nonstop. At first she thought it was a glitch. Then she saw the notifications, hundreds of them, comments, shares, messages from people she'd never met. The video had been shared over 10,000 times overnight. Local news pages had reposted it. Strangers were calling her brave, a hero, the kind of mom we need more of. She scrolled through the comments with wide eyes. One woman wrote, I cried watching this. I've been there. Thank you for not backing down. Another said, your daughter will grow up knowing her worth because of you. A man added, this is why we need real police reform, not just slogans. But not all the messages were kind. Some accused her of disrespecting law enforcement. One said she should have just done what she was told. Another claimed she set up the officer by recording. She felt a knot form in her stomach, but she reminded herself she hadn't done anything wrong. She'd stayed calm. She'd followed the law. She'd protected her child. She made breakfast quietly, trying to act normal for her daughter, who seemed lighter today, less scared, more curious. Mama, she asked over cereal, did you show people the video? Yes, baby, she said, stirring oatmeal. I did. Good, her daughter said simply. So they know he was mean for no reason. That was it. No big speech. Just a child's clear understanding of right and wrong. It gave her strength. Later that morning, while her daughter played in the backyard, her phone rang. The number was local but unfamiliar. She answered cautiously. Hi, is this the woman from the video? A calm professional voice asked. Yes. Who's this? My name is Lisa. I'm with the Georgia Civil Rights Coalition. We saw your post and we want to offer our support. You don't have to go through this alone. She almost cried right then. Support, not judgment. Not blame, support. They talked for nearly an hour. Lisa explained her rights, the legal options available, and how they could help document the incident formally. She also warned her, once something goes viral, the backlash can get loud. Be careful online, Lisa said gently. Don't engage with trolls. Save everything. And if you feel unsafe at any point, call us immediately. She thanked Lisa and hung up, feeling both relieved and overwhelmed. This wasn't just her story anymore. It belonged to a lot of people now. That afternoon, as she walked to the corner auto shop to get the taillight fixed, she noticed something strange. People she didn't know nodded at her on the sidewalk. A woman at the bus stop gave her a thumbs up. The mechanic, an older man with grease-stained hands, looked up from under the hood of a truck and said, Heard what happened. You did right, ma'am. He fixed the taillight for free. She didn't know whether to feel grateful or uneasy. She'd never wanted attention. But maybe this attention could do some good. Back at home, she checked her email. Another message, this time from a local news station. They wanted to interview her. She hesitated. Going on camera felt like stepping into a storm. But then she thought of her daughter watching the news one day and seeing her mom stand up for what's right. She said yes. The interview was scheduled for the next day. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the officer's words. Loud-mouthed ghetto girl. The phrase echoed in her mind, sharp and ugly. She'd heard variations of it her whole life. In school when she asked too many questions, at work when she advocated for a patient, even in stores when she reached for an item on a high shelf. It was code. Code for know your place, code for don't act like you belong here, but she did belong. She'd earned her place with every late shift, every bill paid, every bedtime story read, every time she chose kindness over bitterness. And she wouldn't let anyone erase that. The next morning, she dressed carefully, not fancy, just clean and put together. She braided her daughter's hair extra tight so it would stay neat. "You're coming with me," she said. "But only if you're okay with it." Her daughter nodded eagerly. "I want to tell them he made me cry." At the news studio, the reporter was kind. She let them sit on a soft couch, not stiff chairs. She asked gentle questions. When the camera rolled, the woman spoke slowly, choosing each word like it mattered, which it did. "I didn't record him to shame him," she said. "I recorded him so my daughter would have proof that she didn't imagine it. That what happened wasn't her fault. That sometimes people treat you badly not because of who you are, but because of what they believe about you before they even know you." Her daughter, sitting beside her, added softly, "He said mean things about my mama, but she didn't yell. She just stayed calm." "That's what brave looks like." The reporter's eyes glistened. "Thank you both for sharing your story." After the interview, as they walked back to the car, her daughter held her hand tightly. "Mama," she said, "do you think other kids saw that?" "I hope so," she replied. "Good," her daughter said. "So they know it's okay to stand up." But not everyone saw it that way. By evening, the police department released a statement. It was vague, defensive. It said the officer acted within protocol and that the stop was routine. It made no mention of the insults, the name-calling, or the fact that a child was present. It felt like erasure. Worse, online, a wave of angry comments surged. Some claimed the video was edited. Others said she provoked the officer by talking back. One post even shared a blurry photo of her house with the caption, "This is what happens when you disrespect cops." Her stomach twisted. She called Lisa from the Civil Rights Coalition right away. "They're trying to scare you," Lisa said. "It's a tactic. But you're not alone. We've alerted local advocacy groups. We're also in touch with the officers' department. They can't ignore this forever." That night, she double-checked the locks on all the doors. She moved her daughter's bed away from the window. She didn't tell her why. She just held her extra tight at bedtime. The next day, something unexpected happened. A woman knocked on her door. She looked to be in her 50s, wearing a simple dress and carrying a basket. "I live 3 streets over," she said. "I saw your interview. I brought you some soup and bread. And I wanted to say, thank you." The woman's eyes were full of tears. "I have a son," she said quietly. "He's 18. Every time he leaves the house, I pray he comes back safe. What you did, it gives me hope." They stood on the porch for a long time, talking. The woman shared stories of her own encounters. Times she'd stayed silent to protect her kids, times she wished she'd spoken up. "You gave us all permission to breathe," she said. More neighbors came by over the next few days. Not all of them, but enough. A teenager left a handmade card in her mailbox that read, "You're my hero." An elderly man walked his dog past her house every morning and tipped his hat. A local teacher emailed to say she'd shown the interview, with permission, in her classroom to talk about courage and justice. The support didn't erase the fear, but it softened its edges. Then, late one afternoon, her phone rang again. This time it was a number from the police department's main line. Her heart pounded as she answered. "Ma'am," a calm female voice said, "this is Officer Cho. I was the other officer at your traffic stop." She froze. "Yes?" There was a long pause. I need to talk to you. Not as an officer, just as a person." She agreed to meet at a quiet coffee shop the next day. She didn't tell anyone, not even Lisa. She needed to hear this for herself. When she arrived, Officer Cho was already there, sitting in a corner booth, out of uniform. She looked younger without the badge, nervous, twisting a napkin in her hands. "I'm so sorry," she said as soon as the woman sat down. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I should have said something. I should have stopped him." The woman didn't speak right away. She studied the young officer's face, the guilt, the shame, the fear. She recognized it. It was the same look she'd seen in the mirror after staying silent in her own life. "Why didn't you?" she finally asked. Officer Cho looked down. "I've only been on the force 2 years. He's been there 15. Everyone knows. If you speak up, you're labeled a traitor. You get sidelined. Maybe even fired. I was scared." "I was scared too," the woman said gently. "But my daughter was watching." Officer Cho's eyes filled with tears. "I have a niece her age," she whispered. If that had been her in the backseat, I don't know what I would have done. They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, cars passed. A baby laughed in a stroller nearby. "I'm filing an internal report," Officer Cho said finally. "About what he said. About how he acted. It's not much, but it's something." "It's everything," the woman said. "They didn't hug. They didn't become friends. But something passed between them. A quiet understanding that change starts with one person choosing to do the right thing, even when it's hard." As she walked home, the woman felt a new kind of resolve. This wasn't just about holding one officer accountable. It was about creating a world where her daughter and Officer Cho's niece wouldn't have to go through this at all. That night, she sat at the kitchen table again. But this time, she wasn't alone in her thoughts. She opened her laptop and started drafting a letter, to the police chief, to the city council, to anyone who would listen. She wrote about broken taillights and broken trust, about children who learn fear before they learn to read, about the cost of silence. And at the end, she wrote this: "I didn't fight back because I wanted to fight. I fought back because my daughter deserves to grow up believing she matters. And that's not too much to ask." She hit send. Then she went to check on her daughter, who was already asleep. One arm wrapped around her stuffed rabbit, face peaceful. She kissed her forehead and whispered, "We're just getting started, baby." Outside, the street lights flickered on. The broken taillight was fixed. But the real work, the work of healing, of changing hearts, of building something better, had only just begun. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel afraid to do it. The morning after her quiet meeting with the younger officer, the woman woke to a different kind of silence. Not the heavy kind that follows fear, but something lighter, like the air itself had shifted. She made coffee, checked her phone, and saw a new email from the Civil Rights Coalition. Subject line: "They're listening." She opened it with cautious hope. The message said that because of public pressure, and quietly because of the internal report filed by the younger officer, the police department had agreed to open a formal investigation into the traffic stop. It wasn't justice yet, but it was movement. Real movement. Her daughter came padding into the kitchen in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. "Mama, did something good happen?" She smiled. "Maybe. We'll see." But the world outside wasn't waiting. By midday, a small group of people had gathered at the end of their street. Not protesters. Not yet. But neighbors holding signs that read, "Respect families," and "Protect our children." Someone had brought bottled water and homemade lemonade. A local pastor stood near the sidewalk, talking gently with anyone who stopped to ask what was going on. She watched from the window, heart swelling. These weren't activists with megaphones. They were teachers, barbers, retired nurses, teenagers on bikes, ordinary people who'd seen the video and decided that "not my problem" wasn't enough anymore. Later that afternoon, a van pulled up with a local news crew. They weren't from the big network this time, but a community channel that covered school board meetings and food drives. The reporter, a soft-spoken woman with kind eyes, asked if they could film a short piece about what happens after the cameras leave. "Most stories end when the video goes viral," the reporter said, "but real change happens in the quiet days after." "We want to show that," she agreed, "but only if her daughter didn't have to be on camera. She's been through enough," she said. The crew set up near the porch. As they filmed, neighbors came by to share their own stories. An older man talked about being followed in stores since he was 12. A young mother described how she practiced the talk with her son. How to move slowly, keep hands visible, never argue, even though he was only 7. A high school student said she'd started a club at her school called Know Your Rights. It wasn't angry. It wasn't chaotic. It was human, raw, real, and full of care. That night, as she scrolled through messages again, she saw something that made her pause. A comment from someone who said, "You stayed calm. That's what saved you." But what about the ones who can't stay calm? What about the ones who panic, who cry, who yell back? Do they not deserve protection too? The question hit her hard. She'd been praised for her composure, as if that was the only acceptable way to respond to injustice. But what about the people who don't have the energy to be perfect, who are tired, scared, or just human? She thought about it all night. And the next morning, she recorded a short video of her own, not for news, not for fame, just for truth. She sat at her kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window. Her daughter was in the backyard, drawing with chalk. She spoke directly to the camera, voice quiet but firm. "I want to say something important," she began. "I stayed calm because I had to. Because my daughter was watching. But that doesn't mean someone who reacts differently is wrong. Fear looks different on everyone. Anger is valid. Tears are valid. Silence is valid. You don't have to be perfect to deserve respect. You just have to be human." She posted it with no caption, just the video. Within hours, it was shared thousands of times. Not by news outlets, but by people who felt seen. A veteran wrote, "I froze during my stop. Couldn't speak. They called me suspicious. Thank you for saying this." A single dad said, "My son screamed when they grabbed him. They said he was aggressive. He was 8. Her message wasn't about herself anymore. It became a lifeline for others. Then came the call she hadn't expected. It was from a national civil rights lawyer, one whose name she'd only seen on TV during big cases. He'd seen her video, read the news reports, and wanted to help. Not just with this case, but with something bigger. "We're building a legal support network for families who've experienced biased policing," he explained. "People like you, mothers, fathers, grandparents, who stood up not for fame but for their kids. We want you to be part of it." She hesitated. "I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a nurse." "That's exactly why we need you," he said. "You understand people. You understand care. And you know what it's like to look into your child's eyes and promise them the world will be fair, even when you're not sure it will be." She agreed to a meeting. Not to lead, not to speak on stages, but to help shape how support reaches families in the aftermath of these encounters. Trauma doesn't end when the cruiser drives away. It lingers. In nightmares and anxiety, in the way a child flinches at sirens. She started small. She reached out to other parents who'd messaged her. She created a private group online, just a safe space to share, to vent, to ask, "Was that normal?" Or, "How do I explain this to my kid?" No judgment. No performance. Just community. One woman shared how her son now checks the locks 3 times before bed. Another said her daughter refused to wear her favorite red hoodie because it looks like trouble. A father admitted he cried in his car after being stopped for driving while black, on his way home from his daughter's ballet recital. These stories weren't headlines, they were heartbeats. Meanwhile, the police department remained quiet. No updates, no press conferences. But behind the scenes, things were stirring. The younger officer's report had triggered a review of the older officer's past complaints. 6 in 5 years, all involving disrespectful language toward black residents, all dismissed as misunderstandings. Now, with video evidence and public scrutiny, those old files were being reopened. The woman didn't celebrate yet. She'd learned that systems don't change because one person speaks up. They change when enough people refuse to look away. One Saturday morning, she took her daughter to a community center where a Know Your Rights workshop was being held. It wasn't run by lawyers, but by former teachers, retired social workers, and even a few off-duty EMTs who'd seen too much. Kids played in one room with coloring books that showed cartoon officers with speech bubbles like, "You have the right to stay calm," and "Ask for a lawyer." In another room, adults practiced what to say during a stop, using role play with volunteers. Her daughter sat with a group of kids her age, learning simple phrases. "Is this a free conversation? Am I free to go? I do not consent to a search." The woman watched from the doorway, tears in her eyes, not from sadness but from hope. This was the world she wanted, one where her daughter didn't just survive encounters but understood her power within them. After the workshop, a woman approached her. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and a toddler on her hip. "I saw your video," she whispered. "Last week they stopped my husband for no reason. He didn't record it. He was too scared. Now he won't leave the house." The woman reached out and gently touched her arm. "You're not alone," she said. "Come to our group. We'll help you figure out what to do next." That night she sat at her kitchen table again, but this time with a notebook. She started writing down ideas not just for legal help but for emotional support. What if there was a hotline parents could call right after a stop? What if schools taught kids about their rights alongside math and reading? What if churches and barbershops had pamphlets in their waiting areas? She wasn't trying to fix everything, just to plant seeds. Then something unexpected happened on social media. A police officer from another city, hundreds of miles away, posted a comment on her original video. He wrote, "I've been on the force for 10 years. I've seen good cops and bad. What that officer did was wrong. And I'm sorry it happened to you and your daughter. Real policing means protecting everyone, not just some." The comment went viral. Other officers, off-duty and in plain clothes, began sharing similar messages. Not defending the system but acknowledging its flaws. One wrote, "We take an oath to serve all people. When we fail one, we fail all. It wasn't a flood, just a trickle, but it was real." The woman replied to the first officer simply, "Thank you for seeing us." That small exchange sparked a quiet conversation online. Civilians and officers, not shouting but listening. A retired sergeant started a podcast about rebuilding trust. A young recruit shared how his training never covered de-escalation with children present. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Back home, life went on. She worked her shifts at the hospital, changed diapers, packed lunches, paid bills. But now when she walked down the street, people didn't just nod, they stopped to talk. A teenager asked if she could intern with the new support group. A local business owner offered to print free Know Your Rights cards. Even the librarian asked if they could host a monthly meeting in the community room. She said yes to all of it. One evening, as she and her daughter sat on the porch watching fireflies blink in the dusk, her daughter asked, "Mama, are we famous now?" She laughed softly. "No, baby. We're just seen. What's the difference? Famous means people know your name. Seen means they understand your heart." Her daughter thought about that for a moment. Then she said, "I like being seen." The woman reached over and tucked a loose braid behind her daughter's ear. "Me too." The next week, she got an email from the city. Not the police department, the mayor's office. They wanted to meet, not to defend, but to listen. They were forming a new task force on community police relations, and they wanted her to be part of it. She almost said no. She didn't trust promises. But then she remembered the woman with the toddler, the teenager with the internship request, the retired man who brought soup. This wasn't just about her anymore. She said yes. The first meeting was held in a small conference room at City Hall. She walked in wearing her usual clothes. Jeans, a clean t-shirt, her hair in a ponytail. No suit, no performance, just her. At the table were city officials, police captains, community leaders, and a few other parents who'd had similar experiences. The police chief was there, a woman surprisingly with silver hair and tired eyes. She opened the meeting not with excuses but with an apology. "What happened to you and your daughter should never have happened," she said, "and for too long we've acted like these moments are rare. They're not. And we're here to change that." The woman listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't applaud. But she believed the chief meant it, because she saw the same fear in her eyes that she'd seen in the younger officers. The fear of knowing you're part of a broken system, and the courage it takes to try to fix it. She spoke last. Not as a victim, not as a hero, just as a mother. "I don't want my daughter to grow up afraid of people who are supposed to protect her," she said. "I want her to know that if she's ever treated unfairly, there's a path to be heard. Not just for her, but for every child." She proposed 3 things: mandatory training on interacting with children during stops, a civilian review board with real power, and a city-funded program to teach youth their rights in schools. No one argued. They took notes. After the meeting, the chief approached her. "Thank you for coming," she said. "It's easy to hide behind policy, "You reminded us there's a little girl behind every statistic." The woman nodded. "Just don't forget her." As she walked home, the sun setting behind the buildings, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. Cautious hope. Not because everything was fixed, but because people were finally willing to try. That night, she didn't post anything online. She didn't check her phone. She read her daughter 2 stories, kissed her forehead, and sat on the porch alone for a while, listening to the crickets. The fight wasn't over, but she wasn't fighting alone anymore, and sometimes that's enough to keep going. The calm didn't last long. Just as the city meetings began and neighbors started gathering with real hope in their eyes, the pushback arrived, not with sirens or shouts, but with words carefully wrapped in authority. A statement came from the local police union, sharp and defensive. It called the traffic stop routine the officers, language taken out of context, and labeled the woman's actions as deliberate provocation. They claimed she'd refused lawful orders and used her child as a prop, reading. It felt like being punched in the chest. She sat at her kitchen table, the printed statement in her hands, her coffee gone cold. Her daughter was at school, safe for now, but the words on the page were already echoing in her mind. Prop, provocation, refused. As if standing calmly in her own car, protecting her child from humiliation, was some kind of crime. She called Lisa from the Civil Rights Coalition right away. "They're trying to flip the story," Lisa said, voice tight. "It's a classic move. When facts are against them, they attack your character. Don't let it shake you. The video doesn't lie." But it wasn't just the union. Online, a new wave of comments rolled in, angrier, more organized. Some accounts looked fake, posting the same lines over and over. She disrespected the badge. Cops put their lives on the line every day. Why didn't she just do what she was told? One post even included a doctored image of her car with a caption claiming she'd been speeding. She felt a cold knot form in her stomach. This wasn't just disagreement, it was a campaign. Still, she refused to delete her original video. She wouldn't let fear erase the truth. Then came the protest. Not the quiet gathering of neighbors with lemonade, but a larger, louder demonstration outside the police precinct. Organized by a local youth group, it drew hundreds. Students, teachers, faith leaders, even a few off-duty nurses from her hospital. They held signs that read, "Respect starts with how you treat a child." And, "A broken light isn't a crime." Someone had made t-shirts with a simple image, a small hand holding a larger one, with the words, "She protected me." She didn't plan to speak. She just wanted to stand with them. But when the crowd saw her, a hush fell over the street. Then someone shouted, "Let her talk!" She stepped onto the low wall near the steps, heart pounding. She didn't have a speech prepared. She just spoke from her gut. "I didn't come here to hate police," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I came here because I love my daughter, and because I believe real safety means being treated with dignity, no matter your skin color, your job, or the kind of car you drive." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, young, old, black, white, brown, all standing together. "That officer didn't just insult me. He told my 6-year-old that her mama is ghetto, that she's less than. And that kind of message, it sticks. It tells a child the world won't be fair to her. But I'm here to say we won't let that be the last word." The crowd erupted, not in anger, but in support. Chants rose. "We see you. We hear you. We stand with you." From the precinct windows, officers watched silently. Some looked away. Others met her eyes. She didn't know what they were thinking. But for the first time, she felt like they were seeing her, not as a threat, but as a person. Later that day, a local news station interviewed her daughter, with permission, and with the woman sitting right beside her. The reporter asked gentle questions. "Do you remember what happened in the car?" Her daughter nodded. "He was mean to my mama. He said bad words." "What did your mama do?" She stayed calm. "She didn't yell. She kept me safe." The reporter smiled. "And how did that make you feel?" Her daughter thought for a moment. Then she said, "Proud." The clip spread faster than anything before, not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. A child's voice, clear and unfiltered, naming cruelty and courage. Parents across the city messaged her. My son saw that and said, "I want to be brave like her mama." Teachers wrote that they'd use the interview in class to talk about standing up for others. Even a police chaplain reached out to say he'd shared it with recruits during ethics training. But the backlash grew louder too. An anonymous letter arrived in her mailbox. No return address, just typed words on plain paper. Know your place. Or next time it won't be just words. She didn't panic. She called Lisa, who connected her with a legal team that specialized in intimidation cases. They advised her to document everything, install a doorbell camera, and vary her routines. She did all of it, but she didn't hide. Instead, she doubled down on community. She helped organize a peace walk through the neighborhood. A slow, silent march where families walked together, holding hands, no signs, no chants. Just presence. Over 200 people showed up. Elderly couples, toddlers and strollers, teenagers on skateboards. They walked past the spot where the traffic stop happened. Someone left a single white rose on the curb. Afterward, they gathered in the park for a potluck. People brought food, music, chalk for the kids. Her daughter ran around with new friends, laughing like she hadn't in weeks. That's when the older man from down the street approached her. He'd been quiet since the beginning, never joining protests, never commenting online. But now he held out a small envelope. "I served 20 years in the military," he said, voice rough. "I believed in duty. But what happened to you? That wasn't duty. That was cruelty. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it." Inside the envelope was a handwritten note and a donation to the Know Your Rights program she'd started. She hugged him, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for speaking up. It's never too late," he said. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, pressure was building. The police chief, the one with the silver hair, called an emergency meeting with city council members. Leaked reports, later confirmed, showed that internal affairs had found a pattern in the officers' behavior. Multiple complaints, ignored for years. Now, with public outrage and the younger officer's testimony, the department faced a choice: protect one officer or protect their credibility. Rumors swirled. Some said the officer would be fired. Others said he'd retire quietly. The union doubled down, holding a press conference where they called the investigation a witch hunt and accused the city of sacrificing an officer to appease activists. But the city didn't back down. At the next community task force meeting, the chief announced a major shift. All officers would now undergo mandatory training on implicit bias, de-escalation with minors, and cultural humility. Body cameras would be required during all traffic stops, and footage would be reviewed if a civilian complaint was filed. Most importantly, a new civilian oversight board would be created with real power to investigate and recommend discipline. The woman listened, stunned. These were the exact changes she'd asked for. After the meeting, the chief pulled her aside. "This isn't just because of you," she said, "but you gave us the courage to act." "Thank you." She didn't say "you're welcome." She just nodded, because she knew this wasn't gratitude. It was accountability, and it was long overdue. That night, she sat with her daughter on the porch again. The air was cooler now, summer giving way to early fall. Fireflies were fewer, but the stars were brighter. "Mama," her daughter said, swinging her legs, "are they going to say sorry?" "I don't know, baby," she said honestly. "But even if they don't say it out loud, changing the rules is a kind of sorry. It means they know they were wrong." Her daughter thought about that. "I still don't like him." "That's okay," she said, pulling her close. "You don't have to like him, but you don't have to be afraid of him either, because now there are more people watching, more people who care." The next week, something small but powerful happened. At the grocery store, she ran into the younger officer, the one who'd filed the report. They were both in the cereal aisle. The officer froze when she saw her, then slowly nodded. The woman nodded back. No words. Just acknowledgement. As she walked away, she realized that nod was a victory. Not because it fixed everything, but because it showed that silence could be broken. That one person choosing to do the right thing, even quietly, could ripple outward. Back home, she opened her laptop and began drafting a new plan. Not just for her city, but for others. She wanted to create a simple toolkit, printable guides, short videos, conversation starters, that any community could use to start their own Know Your Rights circles. She'd call it the Mama's Guide to Dignity, because this wasn't about one traffic stop. It was about every parent who's ever held their breath when their child walks out the door. She worked late into the night, typing slowly, carefully. Her daughter slept soundly down the hall. Outside the street was quiet. No sirens, no flashing lights. Just the hum of a neighborhood at peace. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. The fight wasn't over. The officer hadn't been punished yet. The system was still flawed. But something had shifted, not just in policy, but in people. And that, she knew, was where real change began. The day the decision came down, it wasn't with sirens or headlines, but with a quiet phone call. She was folding laundry in the living room, her daughter humming in the kitchen while coloring at the table, when her phone buzzed. It was Lisa from the Civil Rights Coalition. "They've made a ruling," Lisa said, voice low but steady. "The officer's been placed on permanent administrative leave. He's resigning before formal termination." She sat down on the couch, a half-folded shirt in her hands. She didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She just breathed, deeply, slowly, as if her body had been holding its breath for months. "Is that it?" she asked. "He just walks away?" "There won't be criminal charges," Lisa admitted. "The system protects its own too well for that. But his record is now public. He can't reapply to any law enforcement agency in the state. And the city has agreed to a settlement. Financial, yes, but more importantly, policy changes that will outlive this moment." She looked toward the kitchen. Her daughter was drawing a picture of two stick figures holding hands under a rainbow. One had braids. The other wore a nurse's cap. "It's not justice," she said softly, "but it's something." "It's accountability," Lisa corrected gently. "And that's rare." Later that afternoon, the police chief called. Not through a press release or a city spokesperson, directly on her personal line. "I wanted you to hear it from me," the chief said. The internal affairs investigation confirmed everything. The language used was unacceptable. The targeting was clear. And the fact that a child was present made it worse. "We failed you, and we're changing because of you." She didn't say thank you, she said. "Make sure it sticks." The chief promised it would. Within days, the department released a public summary of the findings. Unusual for them, but necessary now. It listed the officer's history. 6 prior complaints, all dismissed. It quoted the younger officer's testimony. He used derogatory language based on race and gender. "I remained silent out of fear, and I regret it." It included a line that made her pause. "This incident reflects a pattern of behavior that violates our core values and the trust of the community we serve." For the first time, the department didn't hide behind a few bad apples. They admitted the barrel was cracked. Then came the settlement. It wasn't millions. It wasn't meant to be, but it was enough. Enough to cover therapy for her daughter who'd started having nightmares about flashing lights. Enough to pay off medical debt from past hospital bills. Enough to fund the community program she'd dreamed of. Most importantly, part of the agreement required the city to implement 3 permanent changes: mandatory anti-bias training for all officers, body cameras activated during every stop with footage stored for 90 days, and a civilian oversight board with subpoena power and community-elected members. She read the terms over and over, not with triumph, but with relief. This wasn't about her getting rich. It was about making sure no other mother had to record her own humiliation just to prove it happened. That weekend, she took her daughter to the park, the same one where they'd held the peace walk. The leaves were turning gold now, crisp underfoot. Her daughter ran ahead, chasing a squirrel, laughing freely for the first time in months. A woman approached her on the bench. She looked familiar. She'd been at the protest, holding a sign that read, "My daughter deserves safety too." "I heard the news," the woman said, sitting beside her. "My son's starting driver's ed next month. I was so scared, but now, I feel like maybe he'll be okay." She reached over and squeezed the woman's hand. "We'll keep watching out for each other." Back home, she opened her laptop and began drafting the first real plan for her nonprofit. She called it Shield and Seed. Shield for protection, seed for the future. The mission was simple: teach young people their rights, support families after traumatic encounters, and work with departments willing to change. She didn't want to be an activist. She wanted to be a bridge. Over the next few weeks, offers poured in. A local church offered free meeting space. A retired teacher volunteered to help design youth workshops. Even a tech company donated tablets so kids could practice recording safely during role plays, but the most surprising offer came from an unexpected place. The younger officer, the one who'd filed the report, reached out again, this time not in secret but through official channels. She wanted to help train new recruits on de-escalation, especially when children are present, and she wanted to co-lead a session for Shield and Seed. She's risking her career, Lisa warned. If the union finds out, they could blacklist her. I know, the woman said. But if she's willing to stand with us, we should stand with her. They met at a neutral cafe, this time in daylight, no hoods or hushed tones. The younger officer looked tired but resolute.